Once upon a time, long before the heyday of streaming, physical media dictated the future of film, television, and the entire entertainment world. And with new opportunities for fans to own a piece of the stories they loved, came new income and new rivalries for studios. Look back at how entertainment has changed over a century, and you can see how titanic shifts in media altered the life of films, shows, and the people who made them. From the television revolution that brought movies into people's homes to VHS tapes, which eventually gave way to higher quality DVDs, home media and film preservation has been decided by consumers and revolutionized by companies that look to monopolize control over how people own their art and entertainment. Each of these are their own unique stories, but they bring us to the last great format war, the battle between HD DVD, backed by Toshiba, and Blu-ray, backed by Sony. Now, if you're at all familiar with physical media, you probably already know who wins this war, but you might not know the story of how we got there, the many different shady deals, brutal fights, and changing alliances along the way, and why who won the way they did. This is the HD DVD Blu-ray war, the physical media battle that shaped the future of film. Today, it seems as if streaming media and online services rule the entertainment world. But the truth is that having your entertainment at just a push of a button and actually completely out of your control is a very recent development in the world of film and television. Really, it's just the latest development in the nearly century-long battle over media. In reality, the ways in which film has been distributed to audiences and controlled by both consumers and companies has continually changed over the years. For decades following their invention and rise to popularity, films lived and died on the big screen, with long-gone movies only living in the memories of those that had seen them or those lucky enough to catch a re-release in theaters. Then came television during the 1950s, and with TV premieres and package deals licensed to stations, studios found a new way to make generation after generation of fans while making their past films even more profitable in perpetuity. For decades, a TV premiere of a feature film and reruns and syndication were how movies lived on past their initial release. By the 80s, the lifespan of films shifted even more with the creation of the VHS tape, which itself won a war against Sony's Betamax. Now, viewers could own their own copy of their favorite films and watch them whenever they wanted. Likewise, the cost and physical ownership of tapes led to the rise of video rental stores. But tapes were always a temporary solution, and the search for high-quality reproductions created the battle between DVDs and Laserdiscs, with DVDs winning. But a cycle had been created, and it was only a matter of time before a new format war arrived. And it was Sony, a losing party in the DVD battle, that soon sparked it. Before we get into all the details of this battle of the formats, I think there's one important question that we need to answer. What makes these high-definition discs so special and sets them apart from standard DVDs? It may seem simple, but what it really comes down to are numbers and lines. You've probably heard these digits before: 480p and 1080p. These are in reference to vertical lines of resolution, the lines that make up an image displayed on a screen, which, when combined with horizontal lines, create each frame of a film, TV show, video game, or anything else displayed on the screen. Simply put, the more lines the better, as these allow finer and finer detail to be displayed on a screen and to bring the digital image closer and closer in resolution to the original print of the film. VHS tapes on average had 240 lines of resolution. Not great, but responsible for the nostalgic warm and fuzzy look that really could not be much better when displayed on the tube TVs of the time.
This is DVD.
DVDs really made a massive leap forward with their 480 lines of resolution and digital imaging versus analog, doubling the resolution and able to hold much more data than a CD because their tiny pits and lands etched into the face of the disc could be read with a short wavelength red laser diode. More storage capacity meant more lines of resolution and lots of special features on a disc, which could be individually selected from a menu, unlocking the way forward for high-fidelity digital copies of film and TV. So when DVDs were first released in 1996 in Japan, they quickly revolutionized film, gaming, and data storage. And while DVD and VHS versions of films were both produced for several years, DVD surpassed the tape format by 2003, and VHS was fully discontinued by 2008. The thing is, higher definition discs and players encouraged the creation of higher and higher definition home TVs. LCD, plasma, and all other manner of high-def televisions were booming, with higher definition discs and eventually HD TV broadcasts making the most of their displays. But it wasn't long until these TVs could display much more than 480 lines of resolution, soon making DVDs look cheap and ugly when overcranked on a great television. And with a new opportunity came a new war. The next leap forward in optical discs came with the discovery that new blue lasers use an even shorter wavelength than red lasers, and as such, even more data could be stored on a disc so that an even higher resolution picture could be achieved, reaching a maximum of 1080 lines of resolution. This new format war officially began on October 5, 2000, when Sony Group Corporation and Pioneer Corporation, both based in Japan, announced what was then called DVR Blue, shortly followed by Sony unveiling their new Ultra Density Optical, or UDO, discs, with Sony and several collaborators working on the new Blu-ray format over the next several years. That development process got a lot more complicated when Toshiba and Nippon Electric Company, also both based in Japan, proposed their own high-definition disc on August 29, 2002, which would eventually come to be known as HD DVD. By October 1, 2002, both Sony's Blu-ray, in collaboration with Panasonic, Sharp, Pioneer, and JVC, and Toshiba's advanced optical disc were showcased at Japan's CTEX exhibition. In very little time, the two rivals pushed their new formats and players forward, each hoping to win over studios and distributors for the deal. This wasn't the first time that Sony and Toshiba had found themselves at war over a media format. In the early days of DVDs, Sony had backed the multimedia compact disc, while Toshiba supported the super density disc. However, that battle ended when the two sides agreed to unify and create a new compromise format known as the Universal Disc format that became standard on all DVDs in 1995, with Toshiba's technology used as the basis while Sony's was largely pushed aside. It's largely Sony's loss in the creation of DVDs that pushed them to jumpstart the next format. And together with engineer Kees Schohamer-Immink, who had played a vital role in the development of DVDs, Sony began development of Blu-ray before Toshiba could start on their own HD DVD. But this time would be different. There would be no unification. And with the two sides already staking their claims to the future, there could only be one. So with the two sides set, what were the actual differences between Blu-ray and HD DVD? It's easy for people to lament a bygone era or a lost piece of media just because it's lost or gone by, and it's easy to sing the praises of something we don't necessarily understand all the details of. But I think it's crucial that we know the hows and whys of how Blu-ray and DVD were different from each other in very specific ways. Well, besides Blu-ray cases being blue and HD DVD cases being red, a deliberate decision to help them stand out from each other, both used 405 nanometer blue-violet lasers to read their discs. But Blu-rays also had a larger capacity of 25 GB versus HD's 15 GB. Blu-ray could also reach a max bitrate of 54 MB per second versus 30 for HD. So while the image and sound was fairly similar, Blu-rays simply had a higher ceiling than HD DVDs. Beyond the specs, what really gave HD DVD an advantage was the flexibility of its special features. At the time of their competition, top-of-the-line HD DVDs featured pop-up commentary windows that could be pulled up on screen alongside the in-progress film. The disc also had pop-up icons for behind-the-scenes featurettes that users could jump to for a related scene and then return to the movie. HD DVDs were also region-free, unlike Blu-rays. However, this left them open to a then-new Chinese disc player known as CHDVD, which was poised to take advantage of the market if HD won the war, while Blu-ray's tighter security prevented this. What's important to note here is that Sony wasn't the only company producing Blu-ray players. On May 20th, 2002, Sony made the incredibly smart decision to form the Blu-ray Disc Association, which established standards, ensured correct practices, and licensed out Blu-ray tech for other companies to use. Alongside Sony, the group initially consisted of Panasonic, Pioneer, Philips, Thomson, LG Electronics, Hitachi, Sharp, and Samsung Electronics, each creating their own tech using Sony's patented Blu-ray format and standards. As for their rival, Well, Toshiba formed the HD DVD Promotion Group in 2004 alongside NEC Corporation, Sanyo, and Memory Tech Corporation on September 27, 2004, giving the format a much smaller, much more Japan-based coalition. And on April 10, 2003, Sony's first ever Blu-ray player went on sale in Japan. The cost? 450,000 yen, which comes out to a whopping $3,815. Massively expensive to the point of essentially being prohibitive to anyone but well-off film enthusiasts with a lot of money to burn. These early Blu-ray players couldn't actually play DVDs because they were incompatible with Toshiba's DVD format, and while that problem was eventually solved, this locked its buyers into this brand new format permanently. As such, while Sony had a major head start on Toshiba, they couldn't get a massive foothold in the market. And on March 31st, 2006, Toshiba released the first HD DVD player in Japan at 110,000 yen, coming out to $934, and soon after releasing HD DVD players in the United States on April 18, 2006, with two different versions priced at $499 and $799. That's still a lot of money for an upgraded media player, but a big drop from Blu-ray while also being able to play standard DVDs, opening up the capabilities of the player. Given that Blu-ray discs and players were being manufactured by a wide variety of companies in the group, there were discrepancies in quality for years between manufacturers who, while aligned on the format, were rivals on the market. HD, meanwhile, had their specifications set from the start, with the HD group working much closer together. For a time, it looked as though Sony and Toshiba might put aside their differences to create some sort of integrated format in order to stop splitting the market and find greater success, like DVD in the past. Listening to the voice of the consumers, having two rival formats is disappointing, and we haven't totally given up on the possibility of integration or compromise, said Sony president Ryoji Chubachi. And there really were some formal talks between Sony and Toshiba over creating a single format together in 2005. However, nothing came of it. And with two rival formats now battling for control over the next wave of home media, it was time for studios to make a choice: Blu-ray or HD DVD. Well, I know what you're thinking right now. Why not put your movies or TV shows on both formats? And a few distributors like Paramount and the BBC actually did do that, and they simply waited for consumers to choose which side would win this war. The thing is, putting your media on a format licensed by another company means that these distributors and studios would need to pay an annual fee to either Sony or Toshiba, as well as a small per-disc fee for creating these Blu-rays or HD DVDs. So putting your media on both formats means that you're paying double the fee, as well as essentially competing against yourself within the marketplace. And so studios began to take sides. Mitsubishi Electric joined the Blu-ray Disc Association, while Disney gave their exclusive release support for Blu-ray. As for HD, their early exclusive supporters included Microsoft, RCA, Intel, Universal Pictures, Warner Brothers, HBO, and New Line Cinema. By the end of 2007, Toshiba had sold 578,000 HD players versus 370,000 Blu-ray players. But Sony had an advantage over Toshiba: the PlayStation. And in 2004, Sony announced that the soon-to-launch PlayStation 3 would use Blu-ray discs for their games, and be able to play Blu-ray films. This meant that not only would Blu-ray start selling millions more discs, but that gamers would by default choose Blu-ray over HD. When the PlayStation 3 was released at the end of 2006, it hot-shotted more than 700,000 de facto Blu-ray users within a year, jumping the company to a 4x lead against HD DVD. People didn't buy the PS3 because they wanted to support Blu-rays. They bought the PS3 to play some of the most popular games of the generation. And in return, the size, detail, and quality of those games, playing on Blu-ray discs, convinced users and companies of the format's quality, and in return gave Sony's Blu-ray disc manufacturers an immense amount of sales. The creator, the format, the distribution, the disc player, and the audience all built in together. Toshiba, for their part, fought back by partnering with Microsoft and Xbox, creating an HD DVD player accessory for the Xbox 360 at the end of 2006. However, this was an external drive that connected to the game player and cost $199. It was a counterattack, but not an effective one. But here's something that Sony would rather not stake their reputation on. The ultimate key to success was which format would be chosen by the adult entertainment industry. That's right, porn held the keys to the future. As long devoted backers of at-home private entertainment, adult film companies staked a lot of business on physical media, ultimately helping VHS beat Betamax in the 80s when they took a side. By 2007, both Blu-ray and HD DVD were attempting to win over these studios' affections, and according to one such company, Wicked Pictures, Blu-ray representatives came to their offices and pitched their format, at the end of the presentation saying, "We can help you, but remember, we were never here." And ultimately, the high-definition disc of choice for adult entertainment was Blu-ray. A very real, very embarrassing side note here. In January of 2007, Warner Brothers announced their own format would launch later that year, Total High Def Disc. But instead of taking one side or the other, or creating a brand new format, Total High Def Disc would feature both Blu-ray and HD DVD on either side of a double-sided disc format. It's a good plan until you spend about 5 seconds thinking about it, and so Warner Brothers, never passing up a chance to embarrass themselves on the public stage, later announced in November of the same year that they would be canceling the Total High Def disc. The reason? There was not a single studio that was interested in it. God dang it, WB, get out of here! But after some back and forth, 2007 decided the war, as studios continued to pick sides. Lionsgate and Universal Music Group went to Blu-ray, while Paramount and DreamWorks Animation both dropped Blu-ray in favor of HD DVD, just in time for Paramount's Transformers to release to boost HD sales. Coincidence? Well, rumors allege that Microsoft and the HD DVD group paid the studios $150 million to become exclusive to them. However, HD continued to lag behind, and in response, Toshiba continued to cut its player prices, eventually dropping the price to only $100 by the end of 2007. But despite being at a clear disadvantage, Toshiba remained publicly optimistic, with Akio Ozaka, head of Toshiba America Consumer Products, saying, "We remain firm in the belief that HD DVD is the format best suited to the wants and needs of consumers." In response, Sony CEO Howard Stringer said, "All of us at Sony are feeling blue today." By the end of 2007, a total of 4.98 million high-definition discs had been sold, including 3.01 million Blu-rays and 1.97 million HD DVDs. But 2008 very quickly put an end to the war. On January 4th, coming off the back of massive Blu-ray sales of Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, Warner Brothers announced it would stop issuing movies on HD DVD and exclusively use Blu-ray. On February 11th, Netflix and Best Buy announced a phase-out of HD DVD. On February 15th, Walmart announced that it too would phase out HD. In little more than a month, most of the major retailers putting physical media in front of consumers had cut ties with Toshiba in favor of Sony. A self-perpetuating cycle of higher Blu-ray sales pushing studio exclusivity, which in turn creates even higher Blu-ray sales. After all the ups and downs, sides taken and lost, and frankly the slow death of HD, the format war officially came to a close on February 19th, 2008, when Toshiba publicly announced that it would stop producing HD DVDs, a little less than 2 years after the debut of the format. So with the war won, what happened in the aftermath? Well, one interesting note is that while Blu-rays may have won the war, standard DVDs were still the home media of choice for years and years to come. The simple matter of it is that Blu-rays and HD DVDs were way more expensive to buy than regular DVDs, sometimes double the price for a single film. Combine that with Blu-ray players often being hundreds of dollars more expensive than a standard DVD player, and a lot of consumers simply not having the most high-definition TVs available yet, and there was this incredibly high barrier to entry. After all, it had been less than a decade when the consumers overall had adopted DVDs over VHS and completely flipped over their library of home media. So with that being said, people just stuck with DVDs and saw Blu-rays as a specialized format that maybe they would get into at some point later down the line. Also, unlike the switch from VHS to DVDs, Blu-rays never truly replaced them as the de facto format for home video. DVDs, while slowly shrinking in market value, never went out of print, with new release films still released on both DVD and Blu-ray formats. And by 2016, a new generation of physical media had arrived in the form of Ultra HD Blu-ray, aka 4K, providing 2160p resolution compared to the 1080p of regular Blu-ray. Of course, given that this is also a product of the Blu-ray Disc Association, Ultra HD isn't really a competitor, but a next generation of the same format, providing collectors with the next level in their home video capabilities. But the truth is that while Blu-ray was already a niche upgrade for home video physical media heads, 4K is even more of a niche, costing more, selling less, and providing a degree of detail that, while beautiful, is less noticeable to the casual viewer. But the true competitor to Blu-ray, 4K, and any other form of physical media is, you guessed it, streaming. We don't have to get into all the nitty-gritty details. While Netflix started its streaming video service all the way back in 2007 as a companion to its DVD mail service, it really wasn't until 2013 when the company fully pushed into its focus on streaming as it began to produce its own shows and movies. From there, streaming services slowly grew, with the COVID-19 pandemic causing major shifts in theatrical distribution and ease of access that majorly benefited streaming services, leading to a rapid expansion in streaming starting in 2020. And as streaming adoption increased each year, DVD, Blu-ray, and 4K sales all steadily decreased. Ease of access, variety of choices, and studios deliberately pushing their content to streaming versus physical media for control over ownership has quickly led to what was once seen as the future of media losing its place in the market. And for the first time in 2 decades, physical media sales came in at under $1 billion. Meanwhile, streaming subscriptions have crossed $35 billion in annual sales in the last few years. It's an evolution that's creating a real polarization in audiences. Physical media obsessives pride themselves on their massive collections, as boutique Blu-ray labels base their success on dedicated fans buying up super expensive, prestige printings of niche movies. Meanwhile, more people than ever are leaving behind physical media for streaming and digital copies, giving up ownership and quality for pricey convenience. And honestly, high-definition discs simply never had a strong enough grasp on the market to withstand the onslaught of streaming. These are highly specialized niche subjects for a small audience that often want to scratch this collector itch, instead of being this seen as a hyper-necessary, really important next step forward for everyone in home media collecting. Streaming, for all its flaws, like being limited in what you can see, having a variable quality of picture and sound that really does highlight the strengths of Blu-ray and 4K, has a sort of air of equal access to it. Of course, that equal access means paying an increasingly high subscriber fee every month or year, and having a smaller and smaller library of films for every single streaming service, and often duplicating cable of years ago. But if you really do break it down, it means that anyone can have whatever movie they want at the touch of a button. And that's not something that Blu-ray or HD DVD or 4K has ever given. This is an exclusivity sort of format here, and it means that people need to sink a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of physical space in their home in order to have it. For some people, that's worth the cost, especially when you think about how passionate some people are about these films. But for a lot of people, it simply wasn't. If there's one positive effect that the format war had on digital media, it's that the standards created by Blu-ray and HD DVD pushed all future digital media to adhere to what they set: 480p, 720p, 1080p, 2K, 4K, and beyond, all right there in the corner of your video player because physical media created the standard. Still, it's not the same because streaming encoding and internet speeds compromise even high-quality files. Streaming 4K content at maybe 15 megabytes per second cannot match a 4K UHD disc speeding along at a consistent 128 megabytes per second, come rain or shine. Looking back, I think the Blu-ray HD DVD war actually hurt the future of physical media. To a lot of people, this was seen as an arbitrary choice, an unnecessary upgrade, and something that these studios, distributors, and creators of this technology wanted to push on the public to have more control, to make more money, and to provide them with some sort of FOMO regarding what you need to do in order to really be in the know regarding film and TV. And simply put, people did not buy into it. People bought into VHS, they bought into DVD, and I think at a certain point they were just tapped out regarding constantly switching over their library of films. There's a clarity of greediness and arbitrariness in the differences between Blu-ray and HD DVD that, while I do appreciate the quality of the format, was just seen as so clearly unnecessary for a lot of people. And when streaming came along to fill that void, well, they got pushed out. 1999 was once called the year of the DVD. You could call 2020 the year of streaming. But what would you ever call the year of Blu-ray? See, even at its height, Blu-ray never even reached the sales peak of DVDs. In 2006, DVDs were responsible for $16.6 billion in revenue. Blu-ray's height? 2013, with a total of $2.37 billion. What's funny is that Sony, the winner of the Blu-ray HD DVD war, doesn't really have a major streaming service like the other major studios. Instead, relying on investments into smaller services, their large hardware presence, the dominance of the PlayStation, and a steady string of films. And with studios and streaming services dropping like flies as the streaming wars wreak havoc, maybe Sony is wise to mostly stay out of it. Because, as they've learned over and over, there are no real winners in war, only survivors preparing for the next conflict. Thanks for watching today's video, and the first video of 2026. And like a lot of the videos I've done these last few years, this is another behind-the-scenes look at a studio battle, just done in a slightly different focus. I've always been interested in the HD versus Blu-ray war, but I never really understood the differences between them or why Blu-ray won over HD. As a kid seeing these blue and red discs that I didn't have any money for in my local Target, they seemed very interesting but very strange to me. And I really didn't understand why there was two of these things happening at the same time. So this was a chance for me to better understand this whole era of the format war. And while this might be a little strange and different from what I usually do, hopefully you found it interesting too. The decisions made by Sony versus Toshiba, the ways that studios took sides in this battle, and what it meant for the future of physical media and eventually streaming, I think is personally very interesting, but it is very deep in the weeds. Of course, Blu-rays are still around, while HD DVDs can be found at your local thrift store. And of course we have 4K now, but it's really streaming and digital purchases that have become the rival to Blu-ray and DVD that they simply can't beat. And that is not for the better, by the way. I'm not an obsessive when it comes to collecting physical media, but I do like to own high-quality versions of the films and shows that I love so that I can always have them. And there is something to be said about owning physical media that you're passionate about that helps you to better focus on and appreciate the films and TV that people have made over the years, versus popping something on a streaming service and sort of half paying attention. To me, it's a matter of focus, care, and appreciation for the art behind these creations. And Blu-ray is an important part of that. Hopefully you found this as interesting as I did. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the differences between HD versus Blu-ray, if you yourself ever owned any HD DVDs, and what you think the future holds for physical media and media consumption overall. It's a very tricky, often stressful subject. As always, a huge thank you to my patrons and members for their continued support, and if you'd like to be a patron or member, it's only $2 a month for early access to every video and exclusive reviews. So until next time, I hope that you're taking care of yourselves and showing support for the art that you love.